Hello everyone. Thank you for taking some time to watch and listen in on our presentation. I'm Jasmine and I'm looking forward to sharing with all of you today about my group's take and steps taken on inclusive music education. I would like to first start off by introducing to you our group members. Going in order from left to right, we have Sarah from Boon Secondary School, Azman from Newtown Secondary School, myself Jasmine from Hougang Secondary School, and Ling from Outram Secondary School. Today, we would like to share with you four main things. Firstly, an overview on what inclusive education means to us. Secondly, the various strategies that we have tried out in our schools. Thirdly, our experiences that includes our challenges and solutions. And finally, our reflections. Before I continue, I would like you to bear in mind this one question and ponder about it as you continue along with this presentation. And this one question is, what does an inclusive music classroom look like to you? Think about it. What does an inclusive music classroom look like to you? And as we were finding more about the term inclusive classroom, we found a phrase by T. Robinson that resonated well with all of us. It is that helping all students feel included and honored could improve student learning and foster continued and diversified music listening in school and beyond. With this, we then began sharing our opinions with this, and we've divided them into three main categories. An inclusive classroom will include the application of differentiated instruction and strategies in which students' learning profile and preferences will be taken into consideration. They will be given the autonomy to decide on their mode of information taking and expressing what has been learned. With this, it will be linked to the next category of SEN strategies, where the UDL, also known as the Universal Design for Learning, comes into play, allowing students to have an opportunity to succeed. The three main principles being number one, the accessible materials to be presented in various ways, such as in text, audio, and video. And number two, offering them more than one way to present what they have learned. And number three, finding multiple ways to engage them. And of course, there are more to unfold with this. So next, we'll be sharing on strategies that we have tried in our schools. And let's listen to what the rest have to say. And if you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to take them down and let us know of them. First up, we have Azman from Newtown Secondary School, who will be sharing on inclusivity in the learning environments in the classroom. And following Azman, we will have Ling from Outram Secondary School sharing.
Hi everyone, my name is Azman Shah from Newtown Secondary School, and I'm heartened to share some processes that promote inclusivity in our learning environments, which is the classrooms. To me, we must extend a sense of belonging in promoting an inclusive classroom climate where all our students feel supported, and I'm sure we have intentionally incorporated these processes into our teaching and learning resources. For my school, a Google survey form will be administered on the first week of school, term 1, week 1. This is to collect data on students' music background, which allows insight into the landscape of music experiences that they have had in their respective primary schools. With the data gathered and sieved, for semester 1, the Sec 1 students' group leaders are chosen based on their musical abilities, while the other roles are voluntary to promote autonomy and ownership. For semester 2, the teacher will then rotate these roles among the group members, where students are tasked to take on another role from the one that they had chosen in semester 1. However, the group leader will be chosen by me, as I would have a better understanding of who can lead the group effectively. Having a reliable group leader is important, as these students would have a better grasp of music and hence would help give feedback while monitoring the group members' progress. These processes are mirrored in the Sec 2 music syllabus besides the Google form. Overall, this allows them to take ownership which is valued as part of the group. Here, cooperation and collaboration thrive, nurturing the essence of group. Another mode of promoting inclusivity is through autonomy, which is to give our learners options. So in my percussion ensemble module, students will explore the following percussive instruments based on chord progressions. After going through all the three main percussive instruments as a class, students are given the autonomy to choose the instrument of their choice. As mentioned in my previous slide, each student is unique with different background, music abilities, or experiences. We need to inculcate a sense of respect to value each other's abilities and celebrate differences together, as an individual, a group, or as a class. Therefore, in my resources, teachers could assess students' level of readiness and use that information to adjust their teaching methods and activities for the class. At times, the resources that we have prepared for our classes might not cater to the other classes, as each class has a different profile of students. So with progressive patterns as an example, it allows students the opportunity to journey toward a common standard or an end goal.
Hi everyone, I'm Ling, and I'll be sharing how I have empowered students to create an inclusive environment with the class rule of helping one another. In 2019, for my music critical inquiry project, I investigated how collaborative learning can help to build a more inclusive environment in the music classroom. With this class, I only have one rule, and that is to help one another. I understand that we always have a lot of rules that we want to keep, such as housekeeping, respect to uphold, etc., etc. But I noticed that students tend to forget a long list of rules. To encourage them to take on a more proactive approach in music learning so that they understand it is a shared space and not just me, myself, and I in an individual learning journey, I use this rule, help one another, to encourage them to keep a lookout for their friends, to offer help when they need to, and to ask for help whenever they feel that they need help. So what I noticed that over time, students learn to provide support to their peers. They also learn to get into groups very quickly and left no one behind. And every lesson, students will be supporting one another by working in groups. So this was a lesson, a snapshot on how they have learned and how they have learned and corrected their rhythm accuracy on a melody before playing on the xylophones. So this was taken in 2019. That's why students are unmasked, because it was pre-COVID times. Yeah. So what happened in this lesson, they were actually supposed to tap and sing along the rhythm, sing along the melody, and then I was supposed to check on them. I was actually doing it with them and guiding them what to listen out for and doing it with them. So as soon as I spotted students who could do it correctly, I quickly said, okay, go and check on your group members. So this actually allowed the better students or the higher ability ones to be empowered to check on their peers, and the weaker ones actually felt a little bit more supported because they felt comfortable being with their friends and to be corrected by them. So singing to their friends is better than singing to their teachers, especially when they feel that they are weak. So eventually I noticed that they are able to, the whole class is able to get to the musical rhythmic accuracy very quickly, because I not only have to have one teacher alone to assess all of them, but students also take on the role to self-assess and peer assess on this small task. How has the rule help one another benefit other students? So in the same class, I have students who have SEL needs and SEN needs, so social emotional learning and special educational needs. So these students tend to not be able to work with their peers as well because of their differences. But with the rule help one another, I realized that they actually support each other better, and they have learned to embrace each other's strengths and weaknesses to achieve musical targets being their main goal. So this is a snapshot of the same lesson. You can see that students are actually all engaged playing the xylophone and practicing in their own groups. So what happened for the students is they actually learn to be a little bit more aware, and I have this group that have students who has to sit on a wheelchair. So because of that, he's not able to play with the xylophone on the floor. So instead of giving him just a bass instrument which is higher naturally, and just giving him a chair to put up, the whole group actually set up this whole environment that everyone has their xylophone put on a chair so that everybody is playing on the same level. And this I realized that it actually left nobody behind, and eventually they were practicing as though that we are all equal, and they actually achieve their musical target very very quickly, just like anyone else in the classroom. So the peer support was very very strong in the class, with the rule help one another. So you can try out with the students if you would like. As part of my teaching, I tried to use the blended learning approach to encourage students to be more self-directed in their learning. This has helped to increase inclusivity in learning through differentiation and the use of choice. As you can see, this is a snapshot of a Padlet, which I've used as a repository of resources that is made available to the students. Students are able to go to the Padlet during the lessons to access the learning resources, and even after school to practice on their own. So some of the resources that I've put up are play-along videos, notations, which they can practice on virtual instruments, as well as additional or original references that they are able to access to deepen their understanding about certain things that we have done in class but is not covered during the lessons. In the same Padlet, I've also shared several links such as the virtual instruments, as well as other key videos that they can go to deepen their understanding. So I've also put up the Loom account so that students can also try and practice on the virtual instrument, and if they need to, do a recording and send it to me for feedback. By providing them with resources and options to work on their skills, they wouldn't come back with like, hey, I only have music lesson once a week and that's it. But it's more of giving them the responsibility and empowering them to take ownership of their learning. So this is in line with the Singapore teaching practice on empowering learners as one of the teaching areas. With now, especially with the students having their own personal learning device, they can actually go online, and I noticed that students are very keen to practice on their own, especially on the virtual xylophone.
Thank you, Ling and Azman, for sharing. Next, we have Sarah from Boon Secondary School sharing with us about scaffolding tasks in the music classroom.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah from Boon Secondary School, and I'll be sharing on how I created tiered tasks to cater to different learners through my keyboard module. As shown in the red markings, students have to start from level 1 regardless of their current standard. After that, they can progress at their own pace up to level 4. As they progress to a higher level, the songs generally get longer and or harder to play. The scores are arranged by myself so that I can cater to the different difficulty levels more effectively. Next, as shown in the green markings, for the songs in each level, students can also choose to play the beginner, intermediate, or advanced versions. The advanced version would stretch the students who have prior keyboard knowledge. There are also different song choices for each level, as shown in the blue markings. Providing options this way would increase student autonomy as they are able to make choices on their own. And lastly, to cater to visual and auditory learners, there are video demonstrations included for each song. These demonstrations are recorded by the higher ability students who have progressed to level 4 very quickly, largely because they already have external piano lessons out of their music lessons in school.
Hello, this is Jasmine again. I'll be talking about the differentiated content demand with the use of multi-level and sensory materials as well as their goals. As for my part, I've collaborated with Temasek Secondary School on the songwriting module for Secondary 2. The first thing we did was to do a survey at the beginning of the year to have a sensing on students' preferred mode of learning to ensure that most of their preferences are being met. We also got a rough sensing on the level of understanding on songwriting, of which only about 5 students from the secondary 2 cohort from Hougang Secondary School expressed that they have attempted songwriting before, but most of them were unsuccessful in doing so because they didn't know what to do. Hence, I knew that it was starting from almost ground zero for most of them. And in term 3, week 1 to 4, I carry out various activities such as the deconstruction of existing pop songs in terms of the structures, lyrics, harmony, and melody. And this was done for a few times over different lessons so as to sensitize them to the structure of pop song, to listen closely and analyze the different pop song so that they will be able to so-called imitate certain ways that songwriters have written their songs. It was done through face-to-face interaction as well as platforms and using tools such as Mentimeter and Padlet to hear more of their opinions on songwriting also. So these were aimed at providing students with a basic understanding of the elements of songwriting. After being equipped with the necessary content, they were then presented with a songwriting pack along with the materials used for learning on Google Classroom. Because I felt that Google Classroom is more accessible to students, especially when they forget their passwords and they want to look back assignments. This would be a very nice good platform for them to access to. They don't have to go back look at completed assignment. They can just scroll down and refer to it. Yeah. And students were also given the option to request for printed versions of the materials as well. So students were then given the option to decide on their songwriting process, be it from lyrics, melody, then harmony, or harmony, rhythm, lyrics, and then melody, so on and so forth. So most students actually began with writing their lyrics first, as it is something that they said they felt most comfortable with. So despite providing them with resources on lyrics writing at the bottom right hand corner, they chose not to use it somehow. But definitely there were some students who still chose to use it, but most of them decided to write their own story, their own lyrics. And also, if you look at it, they get to have choices for the song chord progression. This was one of the things that they struggled with the most in previous years. And we felt that maybe this is something that we can provide for them. And instead of just telling them which chords to use, we broke them up into 3 different levels so that they will be challenged to do more. So if let's say students has chosen to do level 1 over here, okay, we have provided them with actually 2 different progression. And for those students whom we think can do more, we actually encourage them to go to level 2, in which they actually fill in the different chords that they would like to use in between. So if you look over here, okay, at the top, okay, is for the verse. We also do provide them for the chorus and for the end. And for level 3, they get to choose any progressions they want, or through trial and error, they actually listen out for the different chord progression and decide upon it. Yeah, and the same thing goes for the type of chord patterns they are going to play as well. So besides having multi-level resources for lyrics, melody, and chords composition, they were also given the autonomy to set their own goals. Of course, with the basic requirement of having 1 verse and 1 chorus being the bare minimum. So all of them actually chose to have 2 verses and more instead, as because they felt that 1 verse was too short to express themselves. So with all of this, I actually realized that I've seen sort of improvement in their songwriting in comparison to last year, and of course some challenges still remain and have surfaced up as well, new challenges. So we will share more about it later on. Yes.
Universal Design for Learning, in short UDL, principles in music teaching. So what is Universal Design for Learning? Okay, UDL is actually a way of thinking about teaching and learning, and that it helps to give our students an opportunity to succeed. Usually we hear about UDL when we talk about supporting our students with special educational needs, SEN, and the UDL is based on 3 main principles. Multiple means of engagement, meaning how do we sustain our students' motivation and enthusiasm when learning. Multiple means of representation, meaning when we are sharing with them new content or information, how can we present in such a way to support their learning and accommodate to different learning styles and abilities. And lastly, multiple means of action and expression is how we can offer options for students to demonstrate that they have learned. Okay, this was one of the snapshot of my lesson, which my school's allied educator for learning and behavioral support came in, and she shared that actually this follows the UDL. So just to share, it was a lesson playing on the xylophone where students are supposed to play a rhythm. So besides just singing the rhythm, okay, what I have done was to put up the notation on the screen, which actually helps them to see and understand, especially to the visual learners, what to play, so that they understand the expectation and requirement that they are supposed to do for the task. Also, before playing the instrument and getting everyone to play together, I actually layered the learning by having them to play a simple body percussion of the rhythm before actually playing on the instrument. So this movement also helps to bring along the students who are more kinesthetically inclined to get the rhythm more quickly. So how can we use the UDL principles in music teaching is to actually take note of how the principles can actually help to reduce the students' learning barriers and to help them to achieve more success more easily. So I have also learned that by providing them with multiple means of representation, students understand more quickly, and because of that, I am more deliberate in planning my resources moving forward. So I also tried to apply the UDL principles in blended learning. So earlier on when I shared about the Padlet, I tried to provide a variety of resources for the students, which means also to provide multiple means of representation. So when they are learning the instrument melody part on the instrument, they could actually refer to multiple sources. So for instance, some students prefer to look at a notated score, simplified in what you see in the screenshot there. And I also realized that some students may have difficulty identifying where the keys are. So by having color coded, this will hopefully appeal to the visual learners and to help them to see and understand the spatial awareness that they need to have on the xylophone. So as you can see, I've also color matched with the virtual xylophone, which has the colors. These are the same colors as the boomwhackers also. So hopefully they are able to identify more quickly. And also in the video for the xylophone, I have a demonstration video so that students can not only just see the notes, they can also hear and know what the melody sounds like when they are learning. Also, an attempt to have multiple means of action and expression is to provide students with a choice of how they would like to present their melody that they are learning. So they can either use the virtual xylophone or they can use the actual xylophone when learning the piece. Because sometimes I realize that students do not like the feeling of hitting the wrong note, so they are allowed to use their Chromebooks, their personal learning device, to tap lightly and using their earpiece, which they might be more comfortable with. Another attempt of using UDL in blended learning was also consistently for the learning of the Road Ahead, this year's National Day theme song. So similar to the earlier song, I tried to use the similar color coding to notate my scores, the simplified scores, and also providing them with a demonstration video using screen recording so that they can refer to the video to know how it sounds like and the rhythm more specifically that is not notated. So students can also choose their preferred mode or their preferred resource to put the piece together when learning. Also, for one of our xylophone tasks, I realized that students have a difficulty putting the parts that they have learned together within an ensemble. Meaning to say, students playing the xylophone melody, the bass and the ostinato harmony parts, they have difficulty in sequencing. So in a typical lesson, as a teacher, I would do a lot of class demonstration and queuing for them to come in. And even so, students may not have grasped the correct order or the number of bars they need to play. So what I've done is also to provide them with a simplified form that is, as you can see in the middle. And even so, with that score, I realized that students are unable to get it 100% correctly. So what I tried to supplement is again a video trying to be in line with what I have done previously. So I have recorded a video of the 3 different parts and how they actually interact musically, and this is also one of the resources that the students can follow. And then I realized that some of them actually prefer or are also listening and to play along, and that acts as a video guide for them to practice their ensemble. So eventually more students are able to get their sequence right, of course with practice, with a lot of facilitation, and also a variety of resources for them.
After carrying out our lessons, we have also individually reflected on some of the challenges we faced. Sarah mentioned that despite the benefits of scaffolding tasks, it is still very challenging to be 100% inclusive. It can also be very time-consuming to plan every single lesson and craft all resources with scaffolds and multiple tiers. Azman mentioned that in the pursuit of inclusive education, there is a need for us to close the gaps between the learner's current level of knowledge or skills against the level of knowledge or skills required for them to perform the learning objectives. And in order for us to maximize the potential of these students, these processes can be daunting as it requires differentiation in the methods we employ to meet the demands of these students. Next, Jasmine reflected that even though more students seem to be brave enough in attempting the songwriting task, offering too much content and process alternatives turned into a challenge to some as they are afraid of missing out. Hence, exploring every option before deciding on what they would like to do and completing lessons within a stipulated time isn't ideal. And lastly, Ling mentioned that it takes careful planning and greater consideration in planning and sequencing lesson content and activities in the process. We have to be mindful of students' needs individually and as a class, and also be deliberate on class-based activities while allowing students to have the time and space to work on individual weaknesses when differentiation takes place.
Having heard our group share our thoughts, teaching strategies that we have tried, as well as our personal reflection, here is our group conclusion. We referred to the Singapore teaching practice. Understanding students and learning is indeed a key in teaching. Therefore, we think that it is important that we build rapport and get to know our students for who they are, as it will not only help us to keep our students highly engaged in their learning, and for us to provide a safe space for them. We also reflected that as teachers, we are the key facilitators of the experiences that the students take back with them. By understanding what our students need to learn, we can then, through our instructions, create more successful learning experiences for the students by reducing the barriers in learning. In sequencing our lessons, we can take note of the 24 teaching areas and help us to be more mindful of how we teach our students. More importantly, like what the Singapore curriculum philosophy says, we need to believe that our students want to and can learn if we create the right environment for them to succeed. Here are the list of references that we have used. And once again, on behalf of the group, Sarah from Boon Secondary School, Azman from Newtown Secondary School, Jasmine from Hougang Secondary School, and myself, Ling from Outram Secondary School, thank you for listening to our sharing on inclusive music education. Thank you.